Hello techies. Uh, Welcome to another video. If you are trying to deploying a Lambda with lots of dependencies and exceeding Lambda size quota, then probably you will get some error. Uh, we will see how we can deploy a Lambda which is very big in size because of lots of dependencies or a big layer. So if a lambda exceeds the size limit of 50 MB zipped, right? That is zipped. If we can see in the official website, so 50 MB zipped or direct upload. If we are directly creating the lambda in the console, 250 MB is the limit. If we zip it, place it into S3 bucket, and then using that, if we create the lambda, it's like 50 MB size. That is the maximum limit. So these limits very easily gets finished if we are working in the real world scenarios where our lambdas is depending on lot of dependencies. It has to install and import lot of like boto3, some numpy libraries and many other libraries. So all those it easily exceeds these limits. So if the lambda exceeds the size limit, right, we should create a deployment package using a Docker image, right? With this, we would be getting the maximum uncompressed image size of 10 GBs. So that is huge, right? We can create an image out of the Docker. We can install all the packages inside that image. We have to push that image to the repository, and using that image then we can create a lambda. So that this is the whole process to overcome this size limit. So let's directly jump over to the console, and we will start with creating the image first, and then once the image is created we'll push it and create a lambda out of it. So prerequisite is your docker engine should be up and running, docker desktop. So how to install Docker and how to do this setup? I have already done a video of this. I'll be posting that link in the description. You can check that. So this is one prerequisite. It should be up and running. I just we can check it whether the engine is already up and running or not. We can run any Docker search command. If it lists out the libraries, right, it is connected to Docker. We are up and running, so here we are good. Another prerequisite is you should be already installing AWS CLI, and how to install it again and how to do that setup. I have already done a video on that. You can just check the link in the description and follow the steps there. But right now for this tutorial, I will not be using AWS CLI. Basically, we need to create the Lambda function, but let's do it for simplicity. We'll do it in the from the console itself. We'll not run it via the CLI. But yeah, you can go through that video as well. So yeah, my Docker is up and running. I'll just explain the Docker file. So this is the project library, how it would look like. I explained this in my last Docker video as well. Docker file should be at the root folder. It should be present at the root folder of my project directory, because the docker commands whatever I'll give, right, it will search for a docker file in the root folder. So I have created a docker file. So from this line, right, it is the base image which is provided by AWS. So this is specifically for creating lambda images. We can directly use this one. The syntax and all, or the version or the latest version which is available, you can find it in the documentation. But this is the base library, base image. On top of it, now what we have to do is, here I'm just giving my all dependencies like boto3 and maybe some other also. We can list down everything here. So in real scenario, again, this would have many other dependencies. For simplicity, I'm just taking one boto3. So I need to install all these into my image, right? To create an environment, I need to install all these dependencies. With these dependencies, I'll be creating the image, so that at the runtime, right, my Lambda would be able to find all these libraries already installed. Binaries and everything will be present in that image itself. So the Docker file has this copy command. First, we'll be copying the entire requirements file into the root lambda root task root. Uh, okay, from there, the next command you see lambda py, this lambda. Okay, so lambda also I am just copying at the task root. This task root is nothing but the root of my image. Okay, so everything will be present in the root of my image. Next thing, I'll be doing a pip install. So pip install of recursively of all the libraries which I mentioned in my requirement.txt. So since I have already copied this requirement.txt at the root folder, right, root path, it will be able to identify this file, and then it will be doing all the installs. So pip install is done. Once this is done, we need to specify the entry point for my lambda. Okay, from where it should entry point means where from, I mean, where it should start executing the lambda code. So in your lambda, I'll just show one sample lambda also I have given. So lambda, it has it starts with definition of handler, and inside handler, whatever code I write, right, it will start executing inside that starting from the handler definition. And event and context, at this we don't need to bother about these things, but yeah, this is a simple lambda which will just return hello from lambda, and then the and then the version of the lambda. Okay, so this is a simple example. So now I am just cmd that I am pointing it to lambda dot handler. So this is the lambda, and dot handler means this handler. Okay, so it will start the execution from here. So this is important, we need to give this entry point. Now once this is done, the first thing is we need to build this. So whenever we do any changes in my docker file, immediately I'll have to do a build. Okay, so all these commands I'll be posting it in the description, you can copy from there. So I'll just run the build first. Build will take some time. Let's see. So I have just started the build command. It, as you can see, it is building, and it is extracting all the required files from the base image. It will do all those necessary installations, and then this copy and then run pip install. All those steps will be done, and then the build will be getting completed successfully. So now the installation is complete, the build is complete. It may take some time depending on the internet speed that we have. So next thing we'll do, once this build is done, right, the next thing is we will connect to our ECS repository, the AWS Amazon repository, right? So we'll just this command will connect, it will authenticate with the login password, and region, we need to specify the region in which we have created our ECR. Okay, and then using login name and then password, and then the complete ARN of the ECR we need to mention. Once this is done, we'll be authenticating AWS to connect to the repository. So this is done. The first command had failed. So just make sure that you are connected to AWS. To connect to it, you need to configure your AWS CLI, as I explained in my last video. I'll just you can find that in the description, the link. So we need to do AWS configure. If you have already done, so I had deleted it, so that's why I had to do it again. So AWS configure, you put your access key and secret key there, and just configure your AWS CLI first. Once that is done, it will be then succeeding. So login succeeded, as you can see, it is giving the message login succeeded. Now the next step that we have to do is we need to create a repository. So if you see, currently I'll go to my AWS console. Let's go to the ECS, okay, container service. In that we'll go to the repository, and we'll see there is, if there is any repository we can delete, or let's see if any repository is already created. Okay, so Amazon ECR, right, ECR will go to the repository, ECR, let it open. Okay, so in Amazon ECR, we'll just go to the repositories. We'll see that there is no repository right now. Okay, so the next step would create a repository. So here you can see the repository name I'm just giving as hello world. And the other parameters are kind of default ones. So just give it same. No need to change anything. We can just change the repository name if we wish to change. So I'll just do a clear once and then let's see. So this is the ECR repository name, image scanning configuration, scan on push. All these things are pretty default settings and it is mutable. Okay, we'll hit enter and let it create. It will give me a response back. Okay, so this is the response. It is giving me the ARN that hello world repository is created. Now let's see. We'll just refresh our repository and yes, hello world repository is created. Now if you go inside this, there is no image, right? Because we haven't pushed any image yet. We have just built our image locally. If you see, there is this image which is present locally now, but we haven't pushed this image. Let's push it now. So create repository is done. We need to tag. We need to give the tag to this repository to the image that we have created. So we'll just run this command. Okay, so we'll again maybe clear this. Let me make it little bit bigger. Now we are tagging our image to the respective uh, repository that we want to push to. So this is tagged now. Okay, once it is tagged, we can see that it is tagged to. Now this one is linked to my, you can see my AWS account number also here. So now when we push this, this one will get pushed to my account number into ECR. So that is why tagging is very important. We need to tag it to the respective repository. Now we'll just do a push command which will push this image to my ECR. Okay, now let's do this push. So push, you need to give the proper ARN of your repository and then the latest that we have created now. So let it push. It is, you'll see that it is preparing and it will be starting to upload the image to the repository. Again, it may take some time depending on the internet speed, but let us wait to come get it completed. All right, so the image you can see is now pushed. As I said, right, it may take some time depending on the internet speed. So make sure that you have a good broadband connection because if the image is bigger, it will even take more longer time. But have patience and just wait for some time. It will surely get pushed. Now, once this is pushed, right, we can come here and check in your repository that we had created. So the latest image now is present in the repository. Now the image is pushed. Now we'll move on to the next step. So after pushing, we can create this step function using this image. So for better understanding, I won't do it via CLI. Let us go to the console and from console we'll try to do. Okay. So I'll just go to my console and open the Lambda function. We'll go to the open to the Lambda function and we'll create a new Lambda here. So the process to create a new Lambda from ECR would be just create function, author from scratch, use a blueprint and container image, right? So we'll choose container image. We want to create Lambda using the image that we have created. Now that image, if you remember, has all the necessary uh, requirements, all the necessary libraries installed in it. The Lambda code itself, the handler is there in this Docker file. So everything is present as part of this image, right? So we'll just use that image to create our function. I will just maybe call it Docker underscore Lambda. Okay, so I'll just name it as Docker Lambda, or let's say Docker image Lambda. Okay, so this Lambda, then image URI we need to give. We can browse it directly from here, and then we'll find the image in our repository. So this is our repository that we had created. This is the latest image. So let's select this image. Okay, let it create a role for us. Will not change, create a role for us. If you already have a role, execution role for your lambda, we can use that, but I'll just create a new role for this, and then no need to do anything in under advanced setting, just create this lambda. So once this lambda is created using the image, I'll just execute it, and we'll just see what outcome we get. So the lambda is now created. We can see it will not show us the code here. It will just show, because since we are creating it from the image, right? Normally we see the code here, but we won't be able to see the code. So if we want to do any future changes in the code, we'll have to do the changes in our project library. Then we'll have to build the Docker file again, push the image, and it will reflect. But we can't see the code here directly. So we'll just test it out. Let's check why by running what return it gives us. So we'll need to create a test event. So I'll just create, let it be any input. We'll just create this test event and then test it. So you can see, right, it succeeded. And what it says is hello from AWS Lambda using Python 3.9.18. And this is what we had given in our code, if you remember, right? This is the one that we had given. So as you can see, right, everything got executed via this image. We haven't created any separate code or something. It's the image that we used to create it, to create this lambda. And this works fine, right? So yep, so that's it. I hope you liked it. If so, you can please subscribe to the channel to see more such informative videos. Until then, bye bye.